What up? 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 What's good, people? What is up? What is up?
Hey,
I just saw your comment that you wrote in here. We're not going to start this off on some lies. I'm starting to think you're a GOP operative.
oh
I,
God.
I just saw that. I just like the lie.
Mm.
Why would
Why
you?
would I blame it on myself?
Because I mean, you're the reason. Like I was
I,
here
I literally
on
am. No, you're
time.
right. I literally am over here like, oh, we start at 9, so we got time. So that's why I'm over here just taking my sweet time.
Lie without
Mind
the
you,
lie.
we started 8:30. I rolled up in here at 8:33, like, oh girl, we got some time. Well, I'm just sitting back, just chilling. Oh, let's just it was so my fault.
But I'm gonna blame Kamz in the chat. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Not today. I was on time.
Oh my God. Why did and Kamz didn't even say nothing? He just let me just like he didn't even say, oh, we were supposed to start 10 minutes ago.
You say
He
my
was just chilling with me, like, oh well, we have nothing to do. We could just sit back here and talk and chat.
I'm
You
sorry.
did
Look,
not have a sense of urgency.
when you roll with somebody else and you ain't got no keys, you leave when they leave.
You do have
You,
keys.
you just be quiet and you get your ass to the car.
We do have keys.
I don't have no keys over here. I mean, I got a mod stick.
Oh.
A mod stick. That's about it. Hmm.
Oh my God, y'all. It's all my fault. Dear Lord. It's really my fault. Like, blame it on me. Say it's my fault.
Okay, Chris Michelle.
I know. You know that's my girl. I love her. Anyway, y'all, welcome to Red, Blue, and Black, episode 28. I am L Teddy 27, and this is my handsome, co-host, the man that everybody comes to see, none other than the great Kamz. Kamz the Great. How
Hmm.
are you today, sir?
It was a trying day, but I was looking forward to this as I always do. I didn't have to look up no stories this week. Amen. So, yeah, but excited.
Lord.
How are you today?
I'm well. I do the best I can. I am well. I can't complain. If I did, nobody's gonna pay any attention.
I
Nobody's gonna
pay
listen.
attention. I care.
So, just saying.
Oh, Lord.
Um, we have great things to talk about today. We will be breaking down the federal court adjudication coming raining down on the great state of Alabama. That's your beat. That's your.
Ain't shit great about the state of Alabama.
We'll talk about that redistricting decision. We'll also break down the Republican tax plan that is making its way through Congress, and give our thoughts and feedback on that debacle. And we'll also talk about your grifter in chief, occupant Trump, number 47, violating the emolument, the emoluments clause by accepting a $400 million gift from
Yeah,
Qatar.
sorry, government. Yeah.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll end up talking a little bit about what we talked about earlier, some of the front runners. I'll play that video again. Let me upload it to this, but so people can see. There may be people that missed the video earlier, with Jasmine, and then we will have that segue into us talking about
That sounds good.
um the front runners for 2028. So let's get this party started, Cams. So, hey everybody in the chat. We see y'all. We see y'all. We love y'all. Thank y'all for being here. Thank y'all for holding us down and supporting us week after week. We love y'all. We love y'all. And we're so grateful that y'all come back every week. Now I know y'all coming back every week to look at, stare at, and ogle at this young man over here. I'm just here
Young. Well, I'm young.
to move the stories along. That's why I'm here to move the stories along.
Child.
Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. So, in the great state of Alabama, they a panel of 3 judges said that the Alabama legislature intentionally drew its congressional district map to dilute the black voting strength in Alabama. It had already been deemed unconstitutional by the United States Supreme Court and deemed to have violated the Voting Rights Act of 1965. They still saw fit to ignore the Supreme Court ruling, and there was they had to have someone put in place to draw a map for them because the maps that they drew defied the order of the United States Supreme Court because they just didn't give a damn. And so now the scathing ruling coming down from that 3 panel, 3-judge panel. It was almost 600 pages, but it came down on Thursday, and it was Allen versus Milligan case. But basically, it was scathing. Two of the judges were Trump appointees. Two of the three judges were Trump appointees, but it was a unanimous decision by them. And just to let you know what they were trying to do, they were trying to. There are 7 seats that Alabama gets, congressional seats. They wanted blacks to only have 1 seat. The Supreme Court and other federal courts ruled that no, black people should have at least 2 seats, and you shouldn't carve out a map to dilute the black vote. And that's when they were forced to redraw the map. They refused to redraw said map.
Mm-hmm.
And then and then that means that they had to get someone else. They had it's escaping me the name of the person that they had redraw the map. It's escaping me their title. Dear God above. It's escaping me, Kamz. Hold on, I'll get it to you. Hold on, give me just a second. I got it. Hold on. They had
Is it in my notes?
Oh boy. I want to get the terms right. I don't want to be wrong. Oh God, I feel like it's probably right in front of me, and I just don't see it. I'm better than this, y'all. I'm really better than this.
I'm black and I'm better.
I can't remember right now. It'll come to me. I'll look for it, and I'll let you go, Kamz, while I'm looking it up. Go.
Okay, cool. So, fun fact, I'm actually from the congressional district where they threw all the black people in together. And when I was in high school, I actually was an intern for the former representative before Terry Sewell. It was Arthur Davis before he went on that terrible gubernatorial campaign where he got
I
shelled.
found it. They appointed a special master to redraw the district. I couldn't think of the person's title, but they appointed the panel appointed a special master to redraw the districts. I'm sorry, I mean to interrupt. You can go.
No, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. So it's very interesting that they said that there were supposed to be 2. For those who don't know, Alabama is about 27% black, and as El Teddy said, as it currently stands, there's only 1 black representative, and that's Terry Sewell.
No, they have 2. Remember when they made the special master?
Oh yeah, they did make it. Yeah,
they got Shamari Figures. Terry Sewell kept hers, and then that's how they got Shamari Figures.
You're right. But for a majority of my life, it was only the 1, and because it was intentionally drawn that way. Because if you look at a demographic map of Alabama, they've always tried to include almost all of the Black Belt, which are the majority black counties, in the 7th congressional district. So, yep, you could use a special master, or you use a commission where they use a mathematical model where it basically makes it so that it is a 50% chance of which party wins. Some states do that. Some states do the special master where it's basically the political outcome that you want. But what I thought was interesting about this entire case, because you mentioned 2 of them were Trump appointees. Yep. So even they're saying that this shit is egregious as hell. So that's signaling a bipartisanship recognition that this is particularly wrong. Now, I still think that this is just a Band-Aid on a larger wound. Shelby County v. Holder has screwed us, because with them no longer having to go through pre-clearance.
But Kamz, that's the funny thing about this. What was the purpose of Shelby County v. Holder? Because the 3-panel judge says that they're considering having them go through pre-clearance again, and the whole purpose of Shelby County versus Holder was to do away with pre-clearance for states like Alabama. And now this goes back to
Because the
saying
Supreme Court
there was
said
no purpose
racism
in.
doesn't exist anymore. The Supreme Court said racism doesn't exist anymore. We don't need this. And mind you, as soon as Shelby County v. Holder was, the opinion came down with surgical precision across the Southeast, they came up with all these sorts of BS ID requirements. And Alabama went a step further because of budget cuts. All the majority black DMVs were closed. The Black Belt is one of the poorest regions in America. So many people there do not have cars. There is no access to real public transportation. Some people had to go 200 plus miles to get an ID just to be able to vote. And I think this is Alabama's a microcosm of a broader GOP led voter suppression effort across the South. Shelby County v. Holder opened up that can of worms, and now they're trying to, stuff everything back in Pandora's box, but it's too little too late.
I
Because
have the map.
as we know, the census dictates who is in charge for 10 years. Let's be real. Let's be clear. You disadvantage your political opponent for a decade. They're not able to choose the representative of their choice. They're not able to advocate for policy effectively because you screwed them for a decade.
And for those people, I do have the map, Kamz, for those people that want
Pull
to
the map
see
up.
the map. Here it is. Here's the map. So what you see there is that it shows the percentage of residents who are black, and you can see the shading there. But the one on the left is the map that they wanted, which shows Montgomery conveniently carved out uh, into this district CD7, congressional district 7. They have just that sliver of Montgomery going into congressional district 7. That's the deep dark burgundy, along with Birmingham,
Birmingham.
to carve out those big black, you know, municipalities and have them in that one district. And therefore, and then you'll see congressional district 2 down at the bottom right conveniently doesn't have Montgomery, but has all of those other rural areas that tend to there are black people there, but there are a lot more white people there, and that can whitewash
Let me
that
just
district.
add some context to this too. Under the previous map, you don't see the city on there, but Tuscaloosa is also in Congressional District 7. You'd have had 3 of the largest cities in Alabama in one congressional district. Well, you had 3 of the largest cities. And 3 of the top 5 was in one congressional district. And where do black people tend to live? Urban centers.
Now, I love this new map because they made sure to put Montgomery, and they made sure to put Mobile, because not mobile, because they get mad when you say mobile, but they made sure to put Mobile in there so that black people, because they know a lot of black people are in Mobile and a lot of black people are in Montgomery, and there you have it. So that way you could have 2 black districts. I also find it very telling. Here's one thing that I also find telling, Kamz, because in one of the articles it listed the statistics that back 200 years ago, Alabama was between 48 and 51% black. And now in the year of our Lord 2025, it's half of that, only 27% black. And so they have been very successful in making sure that they can, it started off with them disenfranchising and suppressing the black vote when they had enough numbers, to have 40 and 50% of the population. And now that the population is down to 27%, that's not good enough for them. They need to continue to disenfranchise and oppress, even though the numbers are now in their favor. That's not enough for them.
Yeah, literally 1 in 4 Alabamians is black. But for the longest time, we had 1 congressional representative.
Mm. So I just wanted you all to see what this means, but I think it's so it's not even ironic. It's a slap in the face. Like to me, the most egregious part of the ruling was the fact that these people literally said that they would reconsider pre-clearance when you rat bastards did away with pre-clearance in the Shelby v. Holder. That's the sickening part for me.
I think the white people that are from the South, they always knew what it was. They've always we know them, they know us, we see each other with regard to that. But I think there's some people where they just cannot comprehend in 2020. Oh no, that racism stuff was like that was over during the civil rights movement. No, it wasn't.
And
It was a lot more subtle. But even when this court panel, this judicial panel said it was intentional discrimination, that's how high of a bar this has to be, right?
but in the camps, I don't want to just talk over people. If, for those people not clear what pre-clearance is, pre-clearance was a part of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that said that in states that traditionally and historically were discriminatory toward black people, those states had to have any new voting legislation approved by the federal government,
Any rule
in
changes
addition
to
um,
elections, period. Any
any
rule
any
changes to
changes to
elections.
elections period that included redistricting,
Yep.
that included any voting laws, anything involving elections, voting had to be approved by the federal government in order to make sure that you weren't inherently discriminating against black people or other marginalized groups. That was called pre-clearance. So when we had Shelby v. Holder, and they said that portions of the Voting Rights Act was unconstitutional, basically saying, oh, there's no more racism, no more bigotry and discrimination. Why are you holding us to these rules from some, 40, 50 years ago? Only the and this happened. Shelby v. Holder was what, 2013, somewhere around there,
2013. Yeah,
2013.
2013. Yep.
Only for us now to be in the year of our Lord 2025, some 12 years after Shelby be Holder, for them to say, oh, guess what? We may need pre-clearance again. Like it's just a freaking slap in the face because we told you from the beginning that you never needed to do away with it. And it was okay when it was self-serving. Now, what I want the Supreme Court to do is thread the needle with this decision, right? That they made, because the Supreme Court made this decision last summer in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm sorry, in the summer of 2023. Excuse me. They
Uh,
made that the adjudication.
Allen v. Milligan,
That was what, 23 or 24?
23. Allen v.
23,
Milligan,
right?
23. Yeah.
Thread the needle with that decision, and then the decision that just came down, what was that, last week or week before last in South Carolina, where you basically said, oh, congressional gerrymandering can't be racist. You're not redistricting in terms of race has no bearing on the politics of those people. Remember, they said that in that adjudication from the Supreme Court, they basically said just because they carve out a district based on race, that's not inherently political.
But in this case, we see that
So
it is.
they're allowed to redistrict based on race because you have to prove that it's political and it's going to, or
It was bullshit
or was it
reasoning.
the other way around? It might have been the other way
It
around.
was bullshit reasoning. But the issue that I had with that is the only way they were able to get to that conclusion, El Teddy, is because there was so much evidence, direct evidence that they had that they did not consider. And part of it was because of your boy down there in South Carolina, because he was a part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they said it was not inherently racist, because a self-serving black representative was a part of the process at the beginning.
We just talked about this last week, didn't
We
we?
did. Yeah, we did. And that's why they excluded a lot of that evidence, direct evidence, which the lower court used, because it was a slam dunk case. Period. Tacos and tequila. This is why I tell young black people, don't give up. Keep going to the voting booth, because one, people died for this, for you to be able to go up there and cast your ballot. And if you were really that unimportant, why the hell would they be so focused on trying to disenfranchise you through various means, whether it's gerrymandering, whether it's creating these onerous voting requirements? Why do they want to take your power? Because you have it. I'm not interested in taking anything that's not valuable.
And there you have it. Listen, I just I'm really gonna want to see how they're gonna thread the needle between that South Carolina decision and this decision. Like I want to. You cannot have it both ways,
You
Supreme.
can't. And it's more than just the map. And I want to be clear, because I feel like some people are just breaking it down to, okay, the map is more fair now. It's not just the damn map, it's power. Like I said before, redistricting controls political outcomes for a decade.
Yep.
By limiting where black voters can elect a candidate of their preferred choice, it not only impacts representation, it impacts funding, infrastructure, education, healthcare, and criminal justice policy. It's more than just the damn map.
And the thing about it is, let's be clear. These things matter because these are votes in the House of Representatives. And while you're saying, oh, I live out in New York and California in a blue state, this doesn't affect me, it does. Because as you can see, the majority in the House is very tenuous. It takes just two, it could take one or two votes.
Under two
That
votes.
could be the balance of power.
Don't let somebody be sick. Don't let somebody have
Exactly.
surgery that they can't, for whatever, perform their duties. Like this is the most narrow House majority I've seen.
This stuff
I want
matters. That's why the South Carolina decision mattered. That's why this decision mattered. There was a similar adjudication in Louisiana. That's how Louisiana ended up with the second black member of Congress. That is why these decisions matter. But that's why I feel like that decision last week in South Carolina was so egregious. It was awful.
I mean, even I couldn't take myself through the mental gymnastics they used to get to that outcome. And I just feel like if Jim Clyburn had never been involved in that whole process, it would have been a different outcome. So I'm very irritated, because, like we've been saying on this channel, the seat doesn't belong to anyone. It
Yeah.
does. The seat belongs to the people. It's not your seat. You are the representative that's currently sitting in the seat, but you don't own that seat.
I talked about this situation with Jim Clyburn way back in 2022 when it happened. We were over here and I was screaming from the rooftops. When this happened in 2021 and 2022 with Jim Clyburn, I was over here screaming from the rooftops, losing my goddamn minds.
And I think that, part of this is what you were talking about on Rain Mouth earlier. People need to let the next generation lead. If it gets to the point where you're dying in your seat, there's no one else that has any sort of experience. They can't. It's not benefiting us. And we both work.
I mean, think about this,
You gotta have succession planning. Who's the
Cam,
next
in
one
the
up?
largest state, the bluest, the blue and largest state in this country, California, you literally had a senator die in office. Literally.
Senator with
You mean
dementia.
to tell me in the bluest of states, the largest state in this country, a state that's own budget dwarfs most countries on earth, with the largest population, you could not find someone to succeed Dianne Feinstein and put her out to pasture way before now?
And now we got Adam Schiff.
Right. And now we're stuck with Adam Schiff.
But it goes to show, people, once they have power, They never want to relinquish it. And that seems to be the opposite of what a functional representative democracy should look like and how it should function. Because I'm not gonna lie, like when I lived in Alabama, Richard Shelby, that man was in Congress. He was in Congress before I was born. Before he retired, he was in Congress before I was born.
Well, hell, you want to go out?
And he was elected as a Democrat and then switched to a Republican too, but we don't need to get into that right now. But it's like you've been in this body for too long. It needs fresh ideas, new blood. Business as usual is not working for us. Yeah, and I love Auntie Maxine, but she got to go too.
It's time to go. And see, and the one thing that you appreciate about Auntie Maxine is she knows all the rules, but who are you teaching these to? Why haven't you passed this along to the next group? You shouldn't be making those the only one knowing. It should be the Summer Lees of the world, the Maxwell Frosts of the world, the Ayanna Presleys of the world. Those are the people that should be around here knowing all of the loopholes, all of the ways in which you can thwart these people from doing adverse things to this country. However, we let me segue to the next, bro. We have to talk about your Republican party's and your current administration's tax plan that they have.
You mean that bullshit ass policy that they put like the wish list of the billionaires?
Uh-huh. Now, your president has about what, $4.5 trillion worth of tax cuts,
Permanent
permanent tax
for the
cuts
ultra wealthy. Permanent tax cuts.
that he wants to fund. However, the Republicans have to find a way to pay for this. And so that means huge cuts to Medicaid, excuse me, but that's not that cuts to Medicaid is not the part that they're not willing to die on that sword. I'm sorry, they're willing to die on that sword. The sword they're not willing to die on is SALT, state and local tax deductions. That's what they're not willing to die on because many of them live in states that, like California, like New York, where there are some hard red districts in these states, but these states have state and local taxes. And you're right now, there is a cap at $10,000 on deductions that you can make on state and local
Which is
taxes,
why I'm choosing the standard deduction now and fucking
which
myself over.
and that's why and so people that make a certain amount of money like Kamz and things like that live in states that have high state and local taxes, they don't want that. They want it uncapped, where they can have an uncapped deduction on the SALT or the state and local taxes. Now, in this current tax plan, they're saying we're going to raise it from the $10,000 cap, but we're still going to keep a cap on there of 30,000. And so the Republicans that are in some of those red districts in states like New York, even Georgia has a state tax, and California, they're saying, yeah, that's not going to work for us in our districts. And unless y'all are willing to move on that, we're not going to vote for this. But their plan cannot afford to go through unless they have a cap.
Then there's also the issue of, the SALT is going to be a big thing because they're trying to use budget reconciliation to pass the bill. All you need is a simple Senate majority. You're going to bypass that 60 vote filibuster that's typically required for this type of thing. But with SALT, yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I just don't.
And then I also want to note that I really don't think the Republicans are as united as you think they are when you talk about them cutting $880 billion of Medicaid, because it's going to disproportionately impact Trump country. Let's be clear.
That's why Josh Hawley is out there screaming about, oh, We can't get rid. What are we doing, Republican Party? Sir, y'all ran on this type of stuff. Now that the rubber is meeting the pavement, and you know that you stand to lose your next election going back to Arkansas. I'm sorry, Missouri. He's from Missouri. Excuse me.
Misery is where
Going back to Missouri,
misery.
telling your constituents that they no longer have health care because a vast amount of people in Missouri are on Medicaid.
And I also want to note, like, even though it's going to impact their voters, I think part of the real reason why they're trying to do this is when you look at southern states, the Alabamas, the Mississippis, the Georgia, they had no Medicaid expansion. Okay. So who is that going to disproportionately impact? Us. Black people are 60% more likely as they age to be on Medicaid. So this is where I talk about when it's like the policy sounds neutral on face, but if it disproportionately impacts certain groups of people, as long as it hurts the right people, people are willing to vote for this shit. Like, and it's ridiculous because they're saying that there's all this fraud. I don't think people realize how hard it is to get approved for Medicaid at this point. Like, it's already like means tested. There are a lot of hoops that you have to jump through to even get on this. And so the biannual like requirements that they have to do for the eligibility checks, the work requirements if you're not disabled. I mean, the CBO was saying like it could be a potential loss of coverage for 8.6 million people.
Well, in addition to that, what they're trying to throw in there is their social issues, such as saying barring Medicaid from funding gender affirming care, also removing all federal Medicaid, cutting off all Medicaid reimbursements for abortion services and and anything provided through Planned Parenthood. hmm They also, if you have a state that has their own state funded if you, for example, like California has their own state funded health programs for undocumented immigrants and for people living in California, so as to, it's similar to Medicaid, but it's California's version, state funded for people who may not be eligible for Medicaid, or for people that may be undocumented immigrants. Well, they said if your state has something like that for undocumented immigrants, we are going to reduce the amount of federal matching of all Medicaid recipients from 80% to 90, from 90% to 80%, which is a lot of money. Doesn't sound like a lot because it's 10%, but when you add up medical costs and medical bills and the amount of people that this could affect, it is a lot of money.
I also want to note that this sort of welfare reform rhetoric has come back. If you look at the language of the bill and you look at the language of that welfare reform that was passed in the 1990s, one thing that I will say that it directly did was it increased Black poverty. Directly increased Black poverty. Let's be clear. If this goes through, Black poverty shoots up through the roof. It does. And this, to me, this was already a handout to the billionaire class, because most of the things in this bill do absolutely nothing for our population. Like they claim that they're empowering workers and families by reducing taxes, but if we look at it at the face of the issue, Black households are less likely to own stock, own businesses, or itemized deductions, which means that we're going to get a way smaller portion of the benefits. The bottom 40% of earners, many who are Black and Latino, are going to see less than 1% of the benefits of extending these tax cuts. Meanwhile, they're going to lose access to programs that actually help them fucking survive and keep some of these people off the streets and out of poverty. Because I think what we are going to see if they cut Medicaid that much, we are going to see a tremendous increase in medical bankruptcies. The cruelty is the point. But I
They
also think that the Republicans are not thinking long term enough. The reason why Americans are so apathetic and passive about a lot of these things that go on is because they are entertained by numerous things. One is cheap access to goods. Okay, that tariff stuff. I think the reason why Trump is really just about faced on it. When the average American starts being impacted by things, they start paying more attention to politics. Let's be clear. If you cut this, you are going to be shooting yourself in the foot once people realize you are the reason for their suffering. Let them eat cake, okay? Let them be entertained. Let them do their thing. Let them not pay attention to what's going on over here behind the curtain. But the moment people can't live their day to day life and a level of comfort that they're accustomed to, they're going to start kind of thinking, why am I in this predicament? Because some of the Trump voters are already waking up from the tariffs. Pain is a good teacher. But do you really want people that are going to be that united?
well, I am not as optimistic about Payne being a good teacher because I know these people. They have revisionist history. And what will happen is when we get to around the summer of 2027, as
Mm-hmm.
these people start to backpedal and pussy pop off of some of the things that they did, by the time we get to November of 2028, these people will have their own revisionist history and forget all of the horrible things that we've had to endure now. Let's be clear. If not for COVID, who knows how the 2020 election would have gone? Let's be clear. If not for the fact that over 1 million people died in this country and did not have to because your administration was so stupid with regard to the handling of COVID. If not for that, I shudder to think because you had people who willfully in 2024 went and voted for this man as if what happened his first term never happened. They just glossed over it like it was just with these rose colored glasses, as if it was a great place to be in from January 20th of 2021 to January 20th of 20 I'm sorry, from January 20th of 2017 to January 20th of 2021. This was not a nice or good place to be in. But let them tell it. They had this revisionist, intentionally revisionist history in November of 2024 where people were acting as if everything was just beautiful. It was great. The other thing I saw in this tax bill, did you see the carve out for these MAGA accounts? Which is supposed to be this new type of trust fund where the MAGA stands for Money Account for Growth and Advancement. Now, in the bill, this is going to be a tax exempt trust created by the federal government, but it's for young people where up to $5,000 can go into the accounts annually, and beneficiaries can use the funds to pay for higher education, a small business, and their first home. Negating the fact that young people, first of all, ain't got money like that to put away $5,000 annually. Two, that means that this is coming from their parents. The same parents who you're cutting their funds from, you're cutting their health benefits, you're cutting all types of other government provisions. You're cutting the amount of deductions that they can take on their taxes, and then telling them, "Oh, but by the way, we'll let you save $5,000 a year." Where the $5,000 gonna come from?
It's going to come from them having a child. I don't know.
I'm just asking.
Well, this is also why I say that politics is not rational. Okay, because if you look at the U.S. economy, right, it operates off consumption. If you do not have a damn middle class, this whole deck of cards, it falls over. You need a middle class for this country to function. If you keep decimating the middle class, none of this is going to work. Because people are not, let's be clear, Americans are not going out to do all these crazy ass jobs that require this backbreaking labor. I don't understand why they're so harsh on undocumented immigrants, because they pay taxes, they pay into Social Security. We have all of these people that are getting ready to enter the retirement age, but you're deporting all of these undocumented persons that you just basically exploit their labor. Let's be clear. You're exploiting their labor. This whole thing, 10, 20 years, it's totally going to fall apart. It's totally going to fall apart. And you have people on the left and the far right saying the same thing.
I don't, Kamz, do you see this House tax bill going through as currently presented?
No. I think SALT is going to be a big issue for some people, but I think the Republicans that are not in safe districts are not for the cuts in Medicaid. Notice I said not in safe districts. Because if you'll notice, Republicans that are in competitive districts for this next midterm election, their messaging has totally changed. They've softened a lot of the way that they speak about certain issues because they're trying to get as far away from the MAGA as possible, because what they care about the most is getting reelected. Anything that harms their chances of reelection, they're not going to, like I said, these people don't want to give up power. They're not going to jump on the sword for Donald. They're not. They don't care about that man. They care about having that seat.
And here's where stupid ass members of the House didn't think this through. You are not senators. So what that means is after every election, you only have about a 6-month window before it's primary season again.
What kills me is like they're getting rid of the EV tax credit, which they're saying that that's such a big deal, but we say nothing about the hundreds of billions of dollars in oil and gas subsidies. Because I just want to be honest, if you don't want to subsidize anything, fine. I'm fine with it, but let it be across the board. If EVs don't get subsidized, neither does gas. Because let's be honest, if the gas tax reflected what we actually need to invest to repair our road infrastructure, we would be paying prices similar to Europe. We would not have these big ass trucks. We would not have these big ass SUVs. But then they have to change they'd have to change so many standards. But if we're going to be market driven, let's be market driven. Let's not pick the winners and losers. I've always been a proponent of that. If you can't adapt, you need to fail. But we pick and choose which industries that we want to be successful. Because I still don't get why we're paying these people to grow corn that we don't even like. We don't eat that. So we just process it, make it a sugar substitute, and make Americans fat. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Because it costs us more in health outcomes. But this country.
I mean, when you're in bed with health payers and insurance companies as well as the big pharma, you want people to be, unhealthy. I mean, what are we talking about here?
Because it doesn't make sense that all this medication, you can get this stuff for less than $30 a month anywhere else in the globe, and we have our people paying $500, $600,
Which
$1,000.
is why I told y'all yesterday that the Republicans would not go along with this man's executive order,
Today.
which goes to our next segment. The Republicans are infighting. Why? They're fighting about this gift from
This
Qatar.
grift or this
Grift,
gift?
yeah, this grift in the form of a gift from Qatar for in order to give him a $400 million jet that to serve as his Air Force One while for the remainder of the term he's in office. Meanwhile, it would take years in order to make sure that it is aligned to all of the security measures that need to be aligned. It needs to be aligned to for Air Force One. I also find it real convenient that dead man walking ass Senator Minority Leader Chuck Schumer all of a sudden says, "Oh, well, I'm going to grow a pair now, and we're going to move to not advance any nominees for the DOJ since Attorney General Pam Bondi basically rubber stamped this and said it was okay." So now all of a sudden he grew a pair and said, "Oh, he has a problem with this." But the Republicans, by and large, are saying, "Yeah, we can't do this." That's what they're saying to news outlets. Now, will they hold fast to this? I don't buy it. They'll find a way to explain it away for their God King.
I mean, we could talk about how this is a just blatant violation of the Emoluments Clause. We don't need to go there. We already know that. But what I will say is the angle that not enough people are thinking about, this is a fucking national security risk. Why is no one bringing that up?
Because you think they just gonna give you something that they come on now.
Not to mention that, I mean, we know that there are ethical implications, but this is not a fucking ethical administration, so who gives a shit? Like, and then there's the really complex geopolitical ties behind Qatar. Like, we don't even need to get into that when the World Cup was there, how they basically had slaves building the stadiums. Like, okay, we don't need to go into that.
No. It's now that you've gone down that road, since you said we're not, I'm just gonna choose to be petty and go down that road, sir. What about the fact that you out here screaming no anti-Semitism, no anti-Semitism, and it's a widely known fact that Qatar has been and still is willfully funding Hamas? The other part that they don't want to tell you is they were funding Hamas with the backing of Bibi Netanyahu and his whole regime. I told y'all from the beginning, this whole thing had nothing to do with Hamas more than it was about occupation of the Gaza Strip. And that wasn't even what they really want. They want the West Bank, but they want to start with the Gaza Strip so as to have a reason to go after the West Bank. But back to what I was saying, Qatar has been funding Hamas this whole time.
And allegedly the Muslim Brotherhood as well.
With the approval and backing of Benjamin Netanyahu. Because Benjamin Netanyahu wants nothing but to be at war, because the longer he's at war, the longer he can stay in power. Remember, he did away with the Israeli version of the Supreme Court so as to have nobody to push back on him and his regime. And so you have a president that in one breath is deporting people who peacefully protested against the genocide that Israel had, right? You have a president that's out here putting out executive orders talking about you can't be anti-Semitic. You have a president removing billions with the B dollars from colleges because he deems them anti-Semitic when they aren't anti-Semitic at all. But back at the ranch, you're accepting $400 million gifts from Qatar, who is actively and willfully funding Hamas.
And I also think, to go down a little bit of a different angle, for you for him to accept such a lavish gift.
Sean said he's waiting to come back up here again. Sean, you are welcome to come. You have an open invitation. You know we are every Tuesday at
You
8:30.
can come up next Tuesday, Sean, because I'm gonna be traveling for work.
See how he doing me, y'all. Y'all see where he doing
When
me.
you travel for work, I don't say shit to you. But whenever I have to travel for work, it's a damn problem.
Yes.
Because I think I have 3 more travel work trips until the fiscal year ends, to be honest. But I just think it looks crazy that you are going to be cutting like vital government services. You're cutting SNAP, you're cutting Medicaid, but you about to take this $400 million gift. Like, it's just, the optics look really, really bad. Like, I already know that you guys are just for the top 1%. Like, I get that. I follow politics. I'm savvy enough to know that you hate poor people. But, kind of pretend a little bit. Just like a smidge that you give a fuck about the average American. But, and then, we didn't talk about this, but the polling shows that it is deeply unpopular on both sides of the aisle. Both sides of the aisle. Even his own people, even, the cult was like, nah, I don't like that. I don't know whether that's because they think it's a bad move or because they hate brown people. Like, I really don't know, but the polling just does not look good, to be honest.
I mean, Republicans alike are all saying, yeah. When Laura Loomer says that this is a problem, it's a problem. When Laura Loomer is the one saying, yeah, this is going to be a problem, you know it's a real problem.
Look, I just think it's funny because the universe is funny. I was on social media today, and Trump's old interview with Barbara Walters popped up. Where she was like, no, I talk to bankers. You're broke. So it's this facade of you're this wealthy person, but we know that you're not, because if you really had means, it wouldn't be so easy to bribe you. It really wouldn't be. You wouldn't be needing to steal from the American people. You wouldn't be profiting off the presidency if you really had money. That's just how I feel. You broke. It's very broke behavior. It's broke behavior.
Listen,
it's like you're the comptroller that's embezzling money, but you don't have money, because you wouldn't be embezzling if you had money.
Like, these people are so laughable. Now, let's be clear. They have already said, even if they were to allow him to take this, they would have to literally strip this whole thing down, go comb through it for any type of security breaches. And then, even then, it's still, from when they sent it to us, wouldn't be fitted with all of the things it would need to be fitted for to make it Air Force One, because there are so many different security measures and things that have to be put in place that this plane just does not have. It's just not like you could just get a plane off the off the assembly line and say, oh, this is going to be Air Force One. The other part about it is, even the people that will work on this plane would have to be able to pass the highest security clearances, because they would literally know all of the different security measures that would be in place. These are all things that these people haven't even thought about. It takes literally years and years to fit an Air Force One, which is why they've had the same planes for Air Force One for what I know it's been at least 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, back when the second Bush, George W., was president, they did do some upgrades because they found that during 9/11, it wasn't fully equipped to serve as a flying situation room, so to speak, and that put the president at a deficiency during those times. So they did do a little bit of upgrades there, but it's still the same two planes that they use.
I mean, there's also like there are two 747s that they are going to be bringing into
Did we lose Kamz?
the service. So like, why are we
Kamz,
doing
I
this
think we lost you
when we
for a
already
second
have
there.
a project? Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay, so what I don't understand is, yeah, Boeing has had delays, but the two 747s are supposed to enter service in 2026. That's next year. So why are we even discussing this for use as Air Force One when it won't be ready when you get out of office? It won't be. This is stupid. None of this shit makes sense, and it's dumb.
He told you, he was very clear on why. He said Middle Eastern princes and kings and czars or whatever, they fly on much nicer planes than Air Force One, and he wants to be able to ride in luxury like fellow heads of state from the Middle East. Mind you, heads of state in the Middle East have oil reserves that garner them trillions of dollars a year. Heads of state in the Middle East also aren't democratic republics. You know what I'm saying? They don't have the same rules and laws that we have over here.
Contrast that to, when shit was normal. Let's go back to, 2010. When Hillary Clinton, was Secretary of State, she went over to Saudi Arabia. She received a necklace as part of an official diplomatic visit.
That was less than $500.
Yes, it was over the limit of what she was allowed to accept. What did she do? Handed that shit over because she couldn't accept it. But that's called having integrity. This man has none. He's a grifter. He's not draining the swamp. He's just filling it with radioactive sludge. Right in the water, because the Supreme Court says you don't get to have clean drinking water because apparently the Clean Water Act does not actually mean clean water. So, I don't know. I just think that this is just... There's so many unforced errors in this administration, but, never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake, so...
Yeah. It makes way too much sense, but far be it for us to make sense. I guess in our last story, we could discuss how the 2028 landscape. Let me play the video that led to this discussion that we're going to have. Here's the video.
It is this fear that the people within the party, within the primary system, will have about voting for a woman, because every time we voted for a woman, we've lost so far. And I think that that's a natural fear because we just want to win. So there's a lot of people that are like, you know what? Like, let's go find the safest white boy we can find. I mean, I'm just saying.
Those are the callers that we're hearing. We're hearing people.
No, for real.
A white man's got to do it. We're getting those callers.
For real. And to be clear, when we talk about them, I can tell you that there is one specific candidate. I had a donor on the phones with me telling me that all the donors are lining up behind that candidate. So I can tell, and I can tell you it's not black person nor woman, okay? So like it is, they have, quote unquote, they have chosen, and when I say they, it's the same donors that most likely had their opinions about Joe Biden and moved. So like that would be the they that I would talk about. Here is what I want people to understand. Is I do absolutely agree with Malcolm when he talks about not ceding your power. At the end of the day, don't give up your power. people fail to recognize how unique Trump is. They continue to say, well, we lost. Well, they both lost to Trump. Trump, who is a misogynist. Trump, who is going to ramp up the misogynist in the first place, because that's what he does. He is disrespectful. Like right now, he still doesn't know how to deal with me, because if you punch me, I'm punching back, okay? So like, here's the deal. Now I know he think he running again. But that ain't happening. I don't care what all is going on in this country. And I don't care how many things we won't say we are absolutely going to do. I am telling y'all with all confidence, he is not running for a third term. That is not a thing.
All right. So that sparked a debate on where people were like, well, who's this person that the donors are backing? I have my contacts that have been talking to me. Kamz has his contacts that have been talking to him. My contacts that have been talking to me, Kamz, have given me Bashir and Shapiro. There are two factions of donors. Some of the donors want a Democratic version of Trump because they feel like the American populace wants that type of personality, so they like a Shapiro, whereas others want to back someone who they feel can win over red states. So there's Andy Bashir.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you go with what you're hearing from your people.
Just from the people that I know, of course, I am in the Midwest, so I've been hearing more Bashir support from the powers that be, but I do think that it could be different on the East Coast. PA is more purple, whatever. So I don't know. Like I think that these are the two names that we've been hearing, though. These were also the two names that were, being reviewed for Kamala's, presidential run, right? So they were being looked at for VP. They were being vetted. So it makes sense. Like they view these two as the future of the party. Thank God it's not Gavin Newsom, but that's a separate story. I mean, I'm way more of a Bashir fan personally. Shapiro just has some views that I don't care for, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I know that I'm just gonna damn vote for whoever the nominee ends up being. I'll vote for who I want in the primary, but I'll fall in line in the general.
I think that this primary season, come summer of 2027, is going to either it's going to either make or break what's left of the Democratic Party.
If we can't kumbaya, if this is a contentious
For
primary,
me, I don't even think it's about the kumbaya. I think that even if because there's the expectation that after primaries there will be a kumbaya. But what I think is if there's more of the same, you would have caused an even greater divide and alienated even more of your base. And more people are going to choose the couch, the television, and their phone than choose to vote for you. And I keep telling you, the Democratic Party is not running against the Republican Party.
they're running against some
They
damn
are running against the couch, the television, and the phone.
I don't even think it's that. I think they're running against some damn sales with all the infighting that's going on. Because you're
but what I'm saying
because you're saying you're expecting a kumbaya moment after the primary.
What I'm expecting is if there is this kumbaya moment behind someone that the people don't want to get behind, they're going to choose not to vote again. They're going to choose to check the fuck out and say, I can be watching something on TV. My couch feels better. I'm not about to go stand in a line for hours and hours and hours in states where they disenfranchise and suppress our votes I'm not doing that, and y'all haven't given me anybody worth standing in line for or worth getting behind. That is where I think we're going to have the problem. And let's be clear. I know, to me, neither Shapiro nor Andy Bashir gives people, not people that look like us, a reason to say, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to vote. And if you cannot garner the black vote, you're not going to win Democratic Party, because contrary to popular belief, we are your base. Contrary to popular belief.
This is what I'll say. I think that 2016 permanently fractured the party. I think it permanently fractured the party. That deep rooted things that were going on in the primary, how people felt that it was not fair, that you had people sit home in 2016, and they've admitted that they sat home. They regretted it. They showed up, they didn't like Biden. I feel like a lot of people did not like Biden, but they were just like, ugh, he's not an electrifying candidate. He's not someone that I'm motivated to go sit out in these lines for hours in some places where I can't have water, I can't have food. I just got to sit there until I vote. You have to electrify the people. Neither of these front runners, to me, are electrifying. But when you look at what they're talking about, yeah, I think that they have the right vision for what the future of the Democratic Party needs to be. I see it. I mean, for us, I would say that you need to look at what have they done. I know Bashir in Kentucky has pledged free health care for Black Kentuckians, health equity, okay? Criminal justice reform, they're both really good on criminal justice reform, with Shapiro doing expungement for low-level, offenses, probation reform, the death penalty moratorium, Bashir, after, Breonna Taylor, limited no-knock warrants, restored voters' rights. There's things out there that are going to impact us, but if it's not messaged correctly, if it's not communicated correctly,
I'm going to tell you what's about to happen. This is about to be another 0708 primary. If you remember 0708, all of the establishment and all of the donors were behind Hillary.
Mm-hmm.
But the American people said no. That's what happened. All of the money, all of the establishment Dems were behind Hillary. The American people stood up and said, no, enough is enough. We're not going to go through this again with you. Nope, can't do it, won't do it. They had enough. They were tired. And I think that come 20 years afterward, the year of 2027, 2028 primary season, I really feel like the American public will be so fed up, especially on the left, where they're going to say, we don't give a damn who you all try to force feed down our throats. We're going to go with who we want. I really feel like that's going to have to happen.
That needs to happen, because
if that does not happen,
the DNC does not get to dictate who the nominee is. It is the voters. And to be quite frank, I'm sick of the DNC trying to make fetch happen. No, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's very frustrating when everyone that has two neurons and synapses interconnected and firing off can see that all that you should do is create rules that are everyone that wants to run can run, and it's dependent on them motivating people to donate money to them to keep them in that race. That's what it needs to be. I don't want these procedural changes that benefit certain people over the other ones, because at the end of the day, if we're not motivated to vote for them in the primary, what the fuck makes you think that we're going to show up in the general election?
But I'm afraid, though, what's What scares me about what I just said is the same thing that in recollection where we failed in '07 and '08. People only were concerned top of ticket. They were not concerned with making wholesale changes to Congress. And what happens is we had a president that had the House, the Senate, and the executive branch, and they didn't do it. The only thing that came out of that Congress was the Affordable Care Act. After that, nothing else came out of that.
I want to push back because Terrence made a comment because he said the Dems really didn't do much when they had all three of the branches of government. To be clear, it is not as long as people think that they had control.
Yeah, they didn't have it for long. They didn't have it for long. Remember, the Tea Party came in right out in 2010. Tea Party came busting through, and that's how Harry Reid got out of it. Remember, they ousted Harry Reid. All of them got out of there.
Thune payment. Well, no, Thune was oh my god, who was before Thune?
No, you're talking. It was Paul Ryan.
No, was it Tom Daschle?
No, it was out. Was it? No, not the guy. He was out of the South Mississippi. Boehner. John Boehner. It was Paul Ryan. Remember, it was Paul Ryan was speaker, and then I think John Boehner was after Paul Ryan. And then after John Boehner, that's when Pelosi came back.
No, give me 1 second, because I'm talking about something entirely different.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the speakers. Oh, okay. No. But even when Biden first had both chambers of the House and the Senate, that was short-lived. That was only 2 years. But
I want to say, like, they actually did get a lot done during the 2 years. They didn't get everything we wanted done. Because let's be clear, everyone says, oh, they only did the ACA. They only passed Obamacare. That's not true. They passed that damn stimulus. They passed the stimulus. They passed Dodd-Frank Wall Street reform. They repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and they got
to. Now they did pass Dodd-Frank. I always say Dodd-Frank was already in Dodd-Frank was greenlit even before Obama came into office. So Dodd-Frank was going to go through.
Was not going to be in that unless Obama and the Democrats won. Let's be clear, because it did put a lot more regulations on what big banks could do. Now, you could argue that it didn't go far enough in breaking up the too big to fail. You could argue that. I'm cool with it. I'm cool with arguing that. But to say that they did nothing is crazy. And, I will still say that I fuck Joe Lieberman. I'm still fuck Joe Lieberman because there's no public option, because we ripped that out to appease moderates like him and the insurance lobby. The fact that we didn't pass comprehensive immigration reform. I'm upset with that. But that's not on the House. That was on the Senate. Senate Dems didn't support that.
Well, Senate Dems have been on some bullshit for a long
But it's just like I was telling you backstage earlier. We are not like the Republican Party. Just because you're a West Coast Dem is not the same as a Midwestern, Southern, or an East Coast Dem. They're not. They're just not. Like, people want us to be the same as the right, but just progressive. That doesn't make sense. You got to take the good with the bad. Blue Dog Democrats fucked us over. I'll say it. Blue Dog Dems fucked us over, and now they're Republicans. They did. They did. I mean, but I don't know. The corporate influence, the conservative Blue Dog Dems, and I don't think people understand the political system enough. They just get mad when they don't see enough change, but they have to realize they are the change. I don't think enough people realize that when you get out there, when you mobilize, when you are undeniable in the policy outcome that you want, you see a lot of these representatives fold. You see a lot of these senators fold because all they care about is getting reelected if they've been in power long enough. They don't care about what the people really want. They just like, if I vote for this, I can get reelected. And I just think that we have to apply consistent pressure, because one thing I will say the Dems do, they'll show up for an election and then they, like a presidential election, what the fuck they had during the midterms? Where they at? Where you at? And you wonder why we get the policy outcomes that we get, because these old ass retired people that hate everybody, they get their desired policy outcomes because they're out there. But then that's a privilege. I want to be clear. It is a privilege to be actively politically involved, because most people are trying to keep a roof over their head. They're trying to keep themselves fed. They don't have the time for this. And if we don't make the time, we're not going to get the policy outcomes that we want. Because, I mean, look, remember back when we had Occupy Wall Street? You had Black Lives Matter. You had all of that. And there were policy outcomes that were beneficial to us that came from that.
That they then snatched away when it wasn't beneficial to them.
Yeah, and what have people done in response to that? And I'm not saying you don't have to go out there and you don't have to be marching, you don't have to be protesting, but there's different ways that you can be actively involved. So that's why, like, when I say I'm taking a break, I just mean I'm not going to be at the forefront, but that doesn't mean I'm not behind the scenes doing what I do. But you're not going to get my emotional labor. I'm not for everybody. No. I'm not doing this thing that we've always done as the Black political collective. Whatever, we are trying to root for, everybody else gets more benefit than we do. Fuck that. I'm done with that shit. I'm looking for crafted policy outcomes that benefit our community. No, I'm not having everybody else benefit more than we do. Because affirmative action, white women benefited more than we did.
Well, let's be clear.
Yeah, white women benefited more than we did.
Unfortunately, we're at the point now where we have no political capital. We have no equity in this thing that we call politics. And therefore, gone are the days where our issues are going to be at the forefront, or even at this point, I hate to say it, even take it seriously. Those days are gone.
Why is that?
And I'm going to say that's because we have fallen for this whole divisive. We've fallen for all of the divisive talking points. We've actually cowered to the pressures that are coming from this administration, our state administrations, and all of that. Let's be clear. I'm not saying that every time there's an issue that involves the Black community that we have to beat the streets, but there will be times when we need to beat the streets. And what I'm saying is, when people say we can't go beat the streets anymore and we don't need to do any of that anymore because they're going to arrest us, I push back and say, if Black people always said, well, I don't want to do that because I'm afraid of what consequences there are and that there are laws in place. There's always been consequences. There have always been laws in place. But what there always have been out of us is people that said, damn your laws, damn your consequences, and death even be damned at times, because that's the only way progress can be made. And now, more often than not, as a community, we've become more insulated, we've become more individualized, and frankly, we've become more selfish in our ask. And I'm not saying selfish as Black people, I'm saying selfish as an individual, because people say if it doesn't personally affect me, myself, and the people in my address or my envelopes that could get mailed to me, I don't give a damn about the whole. And that's where it fails. And that's why, and then the road started, I hate to be this guy, it started during the time of integration. This whole divisiveness and separation, all of that, it was planted and started there. But now those, the fruit has come, to harvest. And now, even when we do have those moments where you had, like in the summer of 2020, Black Lives Matter and things like that, and people did stand up and it did get some change. Now, even after that, what did they do? the other side adjusted. They immediately put things in place. They immediately started to disenfranchise us and violate the Constitution because they didn't give a damn. Remember, after the summer of 2020, most states put in place where it was damn near illegal even to protest. Said if they see 2 or 3 people on the street corner saying something, that could be deemed a illegal protest that then becomes a felony and strips you of your right to vote. So my thing is, we become so divided as a community. Even when there are things that come together, now we are cowering to their threats. We become fearful of the consequences and what can happen. And my pushback is, although we may be fearful of the immediate consequence to that, I'm more fearful of the long-term consequences of us being stripped of everything that we may have worked for, because they are clear in doing away with everything that happened under the Lyndon B. Johnson administration. Republicans are going to make sure that the reckoning that happened in, when was that, 68 election cycle, where the two parties flipped in 68, they're going to make sure that there is a reckoning for that. And that in 2028 will be some 60 years ago. And so now I believe what they're going to do is, we are absolutely going to be living in a Jim Crow era again. Because if we go back, you could look at 60-year cycles of this stuff.
It's cyclical. Like,
yeah, if you go 60 years before
Reconstruction, what happened?
Right, exactly. Literally,
Obama
what I was
was the catalyst for this. It is cyclical.
It absolutely is. And
but in the
cyclical nature of it,
to Jim Crow,
in the cyclical nature of it,
civil rights movement, civil rights victories. Then we had Nixon's Southern strategy. Then we went from Obama's presidency to Trumpism.
But I think that what's always been constant in the cyclical nature of it, we've always responded. We've always had an answer. We've always had a fight behind us, and we've always been able to say, damn how you feel, damn what you're trying to do, we're going to fight regardless. And I feel like
I think that
I don't want us to give up that fight. And I don't think that we've totally given up.
Some things are misrepresented. Like when you say, like, because I know you said this on your channel, like the whole "we're at brunch." You think that's people capitulating? You think that's people giving up? I've talked to some of the women that
No, I don't. No. I don't want you to misrepresent me. I have no problem with Black joy and Black people enjoying themselves. I have no problem with people having fatigue and saying, hey, I just need a moment. Let me rest a little bit. That is not a problem with me. I've been very clear. My problem is people who tell people this is not our fight. It's time for us to check out. See us in 2028. Because there's a faction of people that are saying none of this is our fight. We don't need to get involved. We may come and see y'all in 2028. But until then, we did our part. We have nothing else to do. And when you start to tell our people that, to me, that is the most dangerous thing. And when I make the statements that I'm making, those are the people that I'm talking to. I'm not telling people not to, take whatever necessary breaks or say, listen, I just need some time, because this shit is stressful and this shit wears on your mental. I'm not saying that as Black people, we don't need to have Black joy, exceedingly. I want that for us. But the dangerous people are those people who are telling us this ain't our fight. We just need to check out and we'll come see you come 2028. Those are the dangerous people.
I don't pay those motherfuckers any attention, because this is what my point of view is from it. I think that this is a withdrawal of unappreciated labor. Okay? We show up for every fucking movement, but when it is our turn, we are constantly left to fend for ourselves. And I think that a lot of Black organizers, specifically Black women that have been at the forefront, they've expressed frustration. They're constantly at the front line, from civil rights to Ferguson to George Floyd, and then sideline once political wins are secured. I've seen it. I've organized enough to see it. I think it's also a form of boundary setting, because this is something that I had to do at the beginning of this fucking administration. I cannot respond to every fucking crisis. I'm not here to educate every ally. I'm not here to organize every protest. And that's not disengagement, it's self-preservation. I don't want to burn myself out and give into apathy, because I will become very apathetic real quick when I'm overwhelmed. And a lot of this stuff that they're doing is designed to overwhelm us, which is why I'm focusing on what I call our fights. There are some things that impact us, but then there's things that directly impact us. I'm putting my energy, attention, and effort on those that directly impact us. I'm sorry, because performative allyship is why I'm started to reframe the way that I do things politically. I don't like the disengagement that we get from people when Black needs are centered. They want us loud for them, but they want us to be silent for ourselves. That's what I have an issue with. And I think that there's some nuance in it, but those far, far fringe people that are just totally politically checked out until 2028, keep on being totally checked out. There might not be a 2028.
I think that we need to, one of the things that we're going to have to learn to do is that, and we're going to have to learn from the past in this, is how to thread the needle. In the past, be it the abolitionist movement, be it the civil rights movement, whatever movement, we did have allyship. We did have people that were not Black aligned to our fight
Who
and
died
were
for the
there.
cause.
However, I say what we're going to have to learn is we're going to have to see some of those white women suffragists that were with our abolitionists, people that were fighting for the abolitionist movement, and they said that they were a part of that movement as well. But when they got what they wanted, threw us to the side and voted against our interests.
Yep.
In the same way, even in, and I'm gonna call it what it is, during the civil rights movement, there was a huge faction of the Jewish community and the Catholic community at that fought in the civil rights movement, walked alongside our people. And as soon as things worked in their favor, then we were tossed to the side, and they were not there for us anymore in the 70s and 80s, because they had no need for us anymore. And now they want no parts of us. And so I think what has to happen is we have to learn from those previous movements and see people from afar off, because I can guarantee you, in the next iteration of Black people fighting for things that involve us, you know who's going to try to attach them? You know the group of people who I see them trying to attach themselves to us and our fight, and then when it's advantageous to them leaving us to the side, like the previous two I talked about. I just want you to see if you can guess. I know you're going to guess this group of people.
I'm not going to guess, because I have like three in my mind.
It's the Hispanic
That's
community.
what
It's absolutely going to be the Hispanic community. Absolutely going to be them.
I didn't want to say that just because, like,
we have to look. We have to know that coming into it.
Well, no, because this is what I'll say. It's not the entire community. I will note that certain members of that community disproportionately voted against their own interest. The Cubans, but
and it ain't just them.
The Venezuelans did as well. Right?
And in Florida, a lot of the Puerto Ricans flipped sides too in the I-4 corridor. I would never forgive them for that. A lot of them switched sides in the I-4 corridor. The Puerto Ricans in Orlando,
it's just
Tampa area.
It's such a complex thing, because I literally had to, after the election, I had to take some time for myself. I literally reached out to one of my close friends who's Dominican. What motivates someone to vote for that? And then we went and we had a long, deep dive about some cultural things that, Trump sort of brings out So the machismo, all of that. But now that you're getting the negative parts of what he said he was going to do any fucking way, now you're looking to us for help. And it's just like, I feel like everyone wants us to do their emotional labor. But when it's time for us to be centered, when it's time for us to have allyship, there's nobody there but us. And it gets disappointing after a while. That's where I'm at with it.
But that's why I said we're going to have to learn to thread
But like,
the
I can't
needle.
be totally tapped out of this immigration thing because of how it is impacting Haitian people.
Well, it's not even them. Now it's happening to people of Jamaican descent.
Yeah.
I bet there's a story I was looking at. I was trying to find. I just found it in two sources, and I'm looking for more sources that have the information. But there's
Because let's be clear, if it wasn't for the Civil Rights Act, none of these people will be over here. None of them will be over here. Like, literally, I did. I'm over the Black ERG at my work or whatever, and I really had to explain immigration. I'm like, do you know, if you were not white, you were not coming to the U.S.
And then even if you were white, depending on what country you came from, let's be clear about that.
And I was like, it wasn't until the Civil Rights Act that we opened up immigration a little bit more. And then they passed some, additional laws where it's just like, more of countries where people look like us can come here, because they had harsh quotas. And then with them revoking, things like TPS, like it's a lot. But people don't realize that if it were not for the sacrifices of Black Americans, they would not be here. And it's just like, they come here and then they spit in our face and then ally themselves with white supremacy. And then when it doesn't go the way that they, think it was going to go, help Black people, help. No.
Well, let's be clear. Nothing's more American than being bigoted and discriminatory to Black people. Nothing says that you're American and an official citizen of these yet to be United States of America until you feel like you can shit on and be racist and or bigoted to Black people.
I mean, it's just as American as apple pie and baseball.
Yep, pretty much.
I mean, it's built into the country, and if
It
they
is.
don't acknowledge that, that's fine. But in our founding document, like, you did not view me as a human, and that's a fact. And there's no amount of revisionist history that you can have that can ever change my mind on that. And that's that on that. So I don't know. I'm still trying to be involved, but I'm just involved with shit that directly impacts Black folks. I ain't gonna even lie to you. I'm not even gonna lie to you. That's where my advocacy is at right now. That's where my money's going right now.
Y'all, we have gone down a path. Listen, we have gone down this rabbit hole. Can y'all let us know in the chat? Put a 27 in the chat if you enjoy our discussions today. Y'all can fall out the bushes and let us know y'all enjoyed today.
I agree with you. Come on, Ronald D. Like, I agree with our good friend Ronald. I think that white women have been a very inconsistent ally. Very inconsistent.
You know my thoughts on
Susan B. Anthony.
You know my thoughts on those women descended from the Caucasus Mountains. You know my thoughts on them. They have been the demise of whole civilizations and empires. So let's be clear. At any rate,
they weren't even shocking that it wasn't even shocking. So when they be doing all that crying when the ICE come, like, I was just like, oh, okay, cool. Like, it's not my people right now, so that's what I'm worried about. I'm more concerned with suspending habeas corpus. I'm more concerned with that. Sorry.
And we thank y'all so much. We love y'all too. Thank y'all for being over here and listening to us, blather about.
Pontificate on politics.
We certainly enjoy it.
Are you serious? 54-46 in Omaha? Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, that election is today. Thank you for that update. I remember y'all also had some of y'all commissioner seats, or the city commissioner seats available as well. Keep us updated in the Keep us updated in the members only chat about that, Ronald, because I do want to know that. Y'all, this has been episode 28 of Red, Blue, and Black. Black Kamz.
Yes.
You better find your way to use the Wi-Fi down to the hotel.
I'm going to be very honest with you. So
You're not coming.
No. I'm not saying that I'm not coming, but there are networking opportunities that exist throughout this. So I don't know what the events are, because the conference is like 7 to like 5:30 every day.
But then that's when all of the good stuff happened after 5, where they have the private happy hours and they start to have all of the
open bar. But then, like, when I tell you, I literally one of my mentors now I met at the conference last year, and he's been very, very helpful in teaching me how to navigate certain things. He's the one that helped me out with this proposal I was working on that was well received by my manager, but we'll see what the senior leadership team thinks. But I want to be on here, but like, you can always have Sean. If I can't be up here, I'm still gonna be involved in the chat if I'm not too drunk.
Lord.
Look, they offering free liquor, open bar.
Yeah, the people when they say come, you come, and they just put the company card down. You can get whatever you want. Just go ahead, whatever you want. Mm-hmm.
The funny thing is, our company doesn't even pay for it. It's vendors trying to sell you stuff.
That's what I'm saying. The vendors use their company card.
Baby,
don't worry about it.
I was in Boston. That man bought a $2,000 bottle of wine. I don't even like wine. I did that night.
Yeah,
a great night. I had a $200 steak. Immaculate. Didn't buy nothing. But they wanted.
When I was just in Orlando, we had somebody that was trying to get our interest. He took everybody out to fucking Charlie's.
What is there to do in Orlando, sans the amusement parks? Because Orlando is not my place to go to in Florida, personally.
I don't really care for Orlando like that.
It doesn't wow me. I wouldn't move there. That's how I always say it. Yeah, I wouldn't move here. I wouldn't move to Miami either, though. Miami's not for me. I'd love to see it, but even though you still ain't invited me down to the Miami to show me how the locals do it. That's okay though. That's okay. As much as you be down there and I ain't got not one day of me invited, we ain't friends. You ain't shit. But every time I come to Atlanta, I gotta hit you up. Just fake as hell. Fair weather.
Sir, you've been to Atlanta one time. Once.
No,
and I took you out. And when you were here, I took you out and we had a great time.
We went live. Yeah.
And I showed you a good time. And I even told you, don't you worry about even spending your money on this while you in my city. Remember that, sir?
I paid though.
No, you did not.
I did pay.
I did not let you.
I did pay.
I did not let you. Remember when we got downstairs, the people said, I said, don't worry about it. I got it.
Anyway, I paid. I can pull the receipts.
Pull it.
Because I had me a little chicken quesadilla. I had me 4 beers. It was a good time. I saw one of my coworkers about it. He absolutely loved it when he went down there. We haven't had a reason to go back to Atlanta though. To be honest, they kind of fired everybody that was in management. So. They fired all the black people is what happened. I didn't tell you that, but they fired all the black folks. That's well. But there's that. I don't know. I might be in your city soon. I don't know. It's just we haven't really been spending money in that location. We go where they spend the money. We have to figure out the ROI. That's what my job is.
That's fine. Anyway, we about to get out of here, y'all. I'm tired. I done did 2 shows today. I gave y'all all I had. I gave y'all all of me today.
I keep telling you, we don't have to do it on Tuesday, but your ego will not let you move it.
To what other day, sir?
I don't know. Why I got meetings?
This is the best day because when you get closer to the weekend, that gets closer to my travel days and silly Saturday. And silly Saturday takes a lot out of me.
I don't even know if I'm gonna be at Silly Saturday because I
got a funeral this weekend, so I don't know if we're gonna have one.
So no Silly Saturday. Okay. Well,
If we do, it'll be on Sunday.
well, there's that. Well, there's that. Oh shit, we got that speaker coming tomorrow. I haven't prepared a damn. Well, I got to.
Anyway, Kam's got a lot going on. I got a lot going on. Y'all, we about to get out of here. We'll be back next week in some iteration. We'll be back.
Hopefully Sean can come up just so we can still have it, because I know that politics does not stop just because you or I are traveling.
Right. All right, y'all. As I always say, whether the country is red or blue, we are always going to be black, and we're going to be here for you. That's all we got for y'all. Until next time, thank y'all for coming. Y'all drive safely. We are out of here.